This video is sponsored by Supply Handlers. Brazil used to be the most feared and the most entertaining national team in football. From the days of Pelé and Garrincha all the way down to the days of R9 and Ronaldinho, they were the pinnacle of international football, the cream of the crop. These days they simply no longer are. For years now, the Brazil senior team has not been scary, nor have they been entertaining. And looking at their opening game of this World Cup, it seems like none of that has changed. So it begs the question, why is the Brazil national team now so painful to watch? We think we might have the answers to that question in this video. Oh, and by the way, it's not just us saying this. If you remember, the legend Ronaldinho vowed to not watch Brazil at the 2024 Copa América because the team just lacked everything. So, what's the problem? How have they become so bad?
Hey fam, this is your chance to build the jersey collection you've been waiting for. The Goal 90 bundle deal is live. Buy 2 jerseys and get 10% off. Buy 3 and get 15% off. Buy 4 and get a massive 25% off. Club kits, country kits, retro classics, pick your favorites and save big. And yes, every order comes with free worldwide shipping. The deal runs only until the end of May. Goal 90 bundle deal. Buy more, save more. Shop now at Goal 90 Shop.
The first reason is simple. Brazilian football has been Europeanized. What we used to love about the Selecão was the flair, the tricks, the amazing talents, and the very beautiful football. Joga bonito. But since the turn of the century, the country has been adopting so much from the European game, and that has watered down what they are really about. You can watch 5 Brazil games these days and not see up to 3 stepovers, 2 elasticos, and you would perhaps not see a single sombrero flick. The team has lost its identity, and it is so sad to see. In fact, in that Group C opener, we saw more flicks and tricks from the Moroccans than from the Brazilians. Let that sink in for a second. Brazil fans have been complaining for years that the football is now boring, but nothing has changed. Now, why is the football now boring? Well, people say that the country no longer produces talents like they used to. Remember the days of the 3 Rs? When Brazil really used to have Ronaldo, Ronaldinho and Rivaldo, 3 of the very best players of their generation, all in one team. Those guys were so good that they each won the Ballon d'Or. Mind you, they still had other top stars like Kaká, Adriano and Robinho on top of that. These were players who were threatening, effective and very exciting. Brazil simply doesn't have much of that right now, but we can't sit here and say that Brazil no longer produces enough footballing talent. We aren't on the streets of Rio, São Paulo or Porto Alegre to know if that's true, and we actually doubt it is. So maybe the scouting is now poorer than it used to be, or the talent ID of the people in charge are now worse. It could also be that the criteria required to go pro as a young player in Brazil have changed a lot since the 90s. That would explain why Brazil now have a player like Igor Thiago starting for them in a World Cup game. No disrespect to the Brentford man, but he just does not feel like a Brazil player of old. He lacks the flair and excitement that we have come to expect from Brazil attackers. But then again, when there are exciting talents available, the coach refuses to play them. I mean, Endrick has proven to be a top talent. He is a player Brazilians are super excited to see because of his skills, ability to entertain and directness. But despite needing a goal for the most part of the game against Morocco, Ancelotti still didn't give the kid a single minute. I mean, how can you explain that? Also, how can you explain Cunha not starting that game? He is one of the best entertainers in and most creative players in the Brazil squad, but he wasn't selected to start. In fact, the fact that João Pedro was not called up and Neymar was nearly not selected could also be evidence of the underlying issue. These are players with flair and who are unpredictable, but the coach seems to fancy them less than others. And you know what makes all of this worse? The pressure. Having achieved so much in the past and established themselves as the greatest footballing nation in history, there is so much pressure on Brazil to perform at every major tournament. Everyone expects Brazil to be good. The media hypes them up to high heavens. The fans want quick results. All of these things put together are usually recipes for disastrous campaigns. Every tournament that goes by where Brazil don't end up as champions, or at the very least reach the final, is looked at as a terrible campaign, and this often affects their project in the long run. It's hard to stay patient and give the coach time to actually build something significant. Scolari was coach for just 1 year in his second stint, Dunga was there for 2 years, Dorival Jr. was there for 1 year. And you just get the feeling that if Ancelotti doesn't go all the way in this campaign, it'll be over over for him very soon as well. In fact, it was this pressure and the resulting desperation that led them to Brazil their tradition and hire a foreign coach for the first time in forever. The pressure just makes it impossible for them to be patient, and until they actually hit the jackpot with a coach just perfect for them, this problem might persist. And this is something we saw with Argentina until recently. Maradona was there for 2 years, Sergio Batista was coach for a year, Tata Martino was there for 2 years, while Bauza and Sampaoli only got 1 year each. They only managed to stumble into a goldmine in 2018 with Lionel Scaloni, and that was how the desperation came to an end. And if you remember, before Scaloni, Argentina were also very painful to watch, even with Lionel Messi. If Brazil don't find their Scaloni soon, this painful cycle might just continue. Now, this next point might sound silly to some, but we really believe it to be true. Brazil is now very painful to watch because they have started to prioritize structure over chaos. We've said this already in this video. What the Brazil national team is known for is flair, skills, and all-round beautiful play. We hardly see that anymore. They seem to now be too focused on having a very defined structure instead of very talented players just taking the game by the scruff of its neck and absolutely bamboozling their opponents. I mean, when the 3Rs played, we hardly knew what positions each of them would be in at every point in time. What we knew was that whatever defender they went 1v1 with was in real trouble, and they were going to try to create a goal or a high-quality chance from nowhere. All of that made them hugely unpredictable. And as we know in football, unpredictability is really hard to defend against. But Brazil don't really have that anymore. You look at them and you can just tell exactly what they're going to do next. You know what Vini is going to do, you know what Rafinha is going to do, and you know damn well what Igor Thiago is going to do. Where are the Mavericks who can win a game for you all by themselves? We don't see them in Brazil anymore. And if we're going to narrow our scope to this World Cup, then we would surely have to reiterate our point about scouting and talent ID. Because what do you mean that Brazil is going into a FIFA World Cup with fullback options of 35-year-old Alexandro, 34-year-old Danilo, 32-year-old Douglas Santos, and a 27-year-old Ibanez who is not even a fullback? What the heck happened to the days of Cafu, Dani Alves, Roberto Carlos, and Marcelo? And just naming these players reminds us of something. One reason Brazil no longer looks so good is because they no longer strike fear into the hearts of the opponents. Years back, teams used to tremble just by looking at Brazil's lineup, and to be fair, when you saw R9, Ronaldinho, Adriano, Cafu, Kaká, Rivaldo, Roberto Carlos, and the rest, you were bound to be scared because you know how much damage they could cause you in a split second. But now, if you're a decent team and you're up against Ibanez, Douglas Santos, Igor Thiago, Paquetá, Luis Henrique, Gabriel Martinelli, and Bruno Guimaraes, surely you'd be going into the game with a reasonable level of confidence. But you know what? It's not all Brazil's fault. The truth is that football has changed so much since 2002, and the nation probably felt that they had to evolve or get left out. European leagues now rule football, so if you want to be the best player in the world, you have to be able to play the European way, and that has probably affected the type of stars Brazil now produces. Most European clubs discourage flicks and tricks, so the players just no longer do them anymore. Also, national teams are now finding ways to nullify Mavericks, whether through disciplined structures or by hacking down the players repeatedly like they did with Neymar. This too probably forced Brazil to change their game and abandon their identity. But well, whatever the reason is, they now look like fish out of water. They are no longer as entertaining nor as scary. But if they were at least getting the results, it would have been quite acceptable. But they aren't. Basically, what we're saying is that we no longer enjoy Brazil games, and just saying that really does feel like accepting that the beautiful game is dying because the Seleção used to be one team everyone looked to deliver captivating and beautiful football, but not anymore. Anyway, it is now time to hear from you guys. What do you think is the reason Brazil is now so painful to watch? What can they do to change that? How far do you think they'll go at this World Cup? Get in the comments and talk to us. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Also, turn on the bell notification so you never miss out on new content. Catch you in the next one. Bye.